Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I am joined by Draco. It is very late at night and he is a little bit irritated that I pulled him off of his wheel, but I wanted him to join me for our intro and outro today because today's video is about hedgehogs and some of the more common misconceptions about them. Some quick disclaimers. If you see any weird stains on me, it is because I dyed my hair tonight and I don't do a very good job, basically. It's very dark, but it'll fade back to red because that's what happened the last time I dyed it this color. But yeah, I also could not be bothered to put any real makeup on. I put mascara on and that's all you're gonna get out of me today. Alright, so today we're gonna be talking about 10 of the most common misconceptions I could think of. I'm sure there are plenty more. There seems to be a lot of misconceptions about hedgehogs. Starting off with number 1, people seem to think that African pygmy hedgehogs don't exist in the wild, which is a strange thing to me, and it's also something that I thought. And I don't know why I thought it. I don't know where the myth originates that African pygmy hedgehogs are like some kind of lab experiment, but they're not. They exist in Africa. And yeah, it's pretty simple actually. We don't have any native hedgehogs in the US, so maybe that's where the myth came from, but just because something isn't native to the US doesn't mean it doesn't exist in the wild. Number 2 is probably the most common misconception, so I don't know why I didn't make it number 1, but that's that hedgehogs hate their owners or hate people or hate anything, really. Hatred is kind of a human emotion. Your hedgehog doesn't hate you. It's either irritated or scared, and more than likely it's scared because hedgehogs are prey animals and they're solitary prey animals, which means keeping company with people isn't part of their natural instinct, and it takes a lot of effort to get them to trust you. Once they do trust you, then you're more likely to see what happens when they're just irritated, like Draco was irritated. I took him off of his wheel. He's not afraid of me, but he certainly would have preferred to have been left on his wheel than to come in here with these bright lights and film an intro and outro with me. But ultimately, hedgehogs don't hate people. The third misconception is that hedgehogs are clean animals. I really don't know where this one came from either. Hedgehogs are fairly messy. I mean, you do get the occasional clean one, but for the most part, they're pretty messy animals. They like to run a lot, which means you have to provide them with a wheel. Naturally, hedgehogs there are some that don't fall in this category, but most hedgehogs will go pee and poop while they're running. Because they're using a wheel, they're running in their pee and poop. Because they're running in it, it gets on them. Once it's on them, they get these things that people refer to as poop boots, which means they get poop underneath their fingernails and between their little toe pads. They also get stuff in their quills all the time, which can be irritating to your skin, and yeah. They're messy creatures. Number 4 is that hedgehogs are cheap. I do get where this one comes from. Hedgehogs to buy and set up are quite expensive. However, their regular maintenance isn't really. However, hedgehogs are prone to illnesses. I have a whole video on that. But because they're prone to illnesses, you really have to have money set aside for the vet because at any point you could need to go in. And that can be quite expensive because they are exotic animals and exotic animals need exotic vets and they are very expensive, usually. Some people get lucky and have really cheap exotic vets and I get really jealous. Number 5 is that hedgehogs are hypoallergenic. Again, Don't know where this one comes from. They are definitely animals that you can be allergic to, not only just mildly like hedgie hives, which even I get. You can be severely allergic to them just like any other animal really. Number 6 is if you live somewhere warm, you don't need a heat setup. The climate you live in really doesn't dictate what temperature your house is. If you use an AC, for example, your house is gonna be cold. So you really need to have something on hand just in case. If your room is definitely hot, I totally understand not wanting to have a heat lamp set up or something like that, but you should make sure that you have something on hand just in case your room, for whatever reason, one night is not hot. Number 7 is that hedgehogs don't need insects. Now, hedgehogs are omnivores, however, they also do eat insects in the wild, and they should be part of their diet. Hedgehogs don't have a cecum, which is what digests plant matter, which means they biologically are designed to eat something other than plants. Their bodies biologically are actually suited to digest insects really well, and so they should be at least offered. I make sure that insects are a regular staple in my hedgehog's diet. I do recognize that some hedgehogs refuse insects, in which case have them on the highest quality cat food you can possibly have them on. You probably should do that anyway, but if that's going to be their only source of nutrient, then you really need to like triple make sure that what you're feeding is great. But if you have the ability and your hedgehog will eat them, your hedgehogs absolutely should be on insects, and a variety of them at that. Speaking of hedgehog diets, my number 8 is that hedgehog food is better for them than cat food because hedgehog food is species specific. No. It really only takes a quick glance at a hedgehog food's ingredients to tell you exactly why they're not recommended. Hedgehog food is incredibly low quality. There is not one on the market right now that I know of that is not low quality. And why in the world would you want to feed any animal at any given point something that could possibly make them sick, malnourished, the list goes on of the amount of side effects, obesity, and on the other end of the spectrum, some hedgehogs have literally starved to death on certain hedgehog foods. It's just, it's not good. It's not good. Don't do it. I know some people get the impression that people like to feed cat food because it's cheaper than hedgehog food and it's saving money, but that's really not the case. And for the most part, if you're feeding a high quality cat food, it's usually not that much cheaper anyway. So yeah, just check out some of the ingredients. I want to do a whole video dedicated to this where I go through some of the more popular hedgehog foods and go over why I wouldn't recommend them. But for now, if you're feeding hedgehog food, I'm not shaming you. I totally understand that a lot of people recommend hedgehog specific food. A lot of vets specifically recommend hedgehog specific food. However, they're paid to do so a lot of the time, and unfortunately, vets are not always the best when it comes to nutrition. I mean, we could go into like the prescription diets that they pump into cats and dogs and things like that if we wanted to, but we're not going to. Just check the ingredients of hedgehog foods. If you don't believe me, you'll see it for yourself. Some of them even have wood shavings in them. It's just, no. Number 9 is that hedgehogs get lonely. Hedgehogs are solitary animals, which means they do not want the company of another animal, particularly not another hedgehog. There is on occasion an exception with some females. Specifically, sisters tend to do okay in pairs, but for the most part, Hedgehogs are solitary. They should remain so. Fighting between hedgehogs is quite scary, particularly because of their quills and their protruding eyes. You probably get the picture there. It's not pleasant usually. And number 10, our final misconception, and one that I never came across until I started my YouTube channel and started doing videos like this. And that is that hedgehogs don't need a vet because they're a small pet. That's such an odd sentiment to me, and it's really not true, to be quite frank. Hedgehogs do need vet care when they're sick. You can't just ignore it because they're not a dog or a cat or something large. Ignoring a pet of any kind when they're sick and need vet attention is cruel and abusive, and it is terrifying to me that this is even something that I have come across so much in my time on YouTube. That's why I preach that you need a vet fund. It's why I say things like, if you can't go to a vet, don't get the pet, because any animal that gets sick, no matter how big or how small, if they need medical attention, you are their owner and you're responsible for that. They didn't ask to be in your care, you brought them in. Animals are not a right, they're a privilege, and they're also a choice. If you don't think you can provide a vet for your pet, you definitely shouldn't have one. I'm not shaming anyone who doesn't have like a bunch of money set aside for their pets, but with the number of emergencies that crop up with animals, it is so important to have some sort of means or something ready for if your pet gets sick. And nothing makes me sadder than getting comments like, I can't take my hedgehog to the vet, my parents won't let me, they don't believe that small animals should go to the vet. Or them personally, they personally don't believe that small animals should go to the vet. It's just mind-blowing to me. So yeah, that's not true either. Any animal that needs medical attention, hedgehogs included, need to go to a vet if they need help. So that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This big tubby kid is super ready to go get back on his wheel. He is not thrilled about being interrupted in the middle of his daily ritual of eating and pooping and sleeping. If you have any other hedgehog related requests, leave them down below. I know everyone seems to always want more hedgehog videos. My dog will not stop barking at my cat. This is what I get for having so many pets. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!
I'm a lonely, hard feline.
I take what's mine and I leave behind.